Welcome everyone. Today we'll have a guide video and also party setup for Albedo, the new 5-star Geo character that's joining us with patch 1.2. Now while I was looking for Albedo build, I saw this powerful Albedo build with a Japanese content creator. Notice that he is doing about 3000 damage without critting, and he's critical hitting for over 9000 damage. And after the monster's HP goes below 50%, he is now critting for over 10,000 damage with his E-spell. And notice that guys, as the Albedo support, he doesn't have to be on the field. He can be doing this much damage without being on the field for the whole party to do a bonus 10,000 damage. And this is massive. In this video, we'll look at one of the best items for Albedo, which is actually a 3-star weapon. This particular weapon has the 38.6% critical damage and also the 28% critical rate. If you look at the comparison of a 5-star weapon, one of the best bows in the game, will only have 22% critical rate and also 20% critical damage. So this weapon, just with the secondary stats and also special effect, is strong enough to be stronger than some of the 5-star weapons for Albedo, because he doesn't need base attack. We'll be looking into one of the best Albedo supporting build, which can turn him into a Geo vessel. We'll also be looking into a detailed demonstration of Albedo doing over 9000 damage with his E-spell, and how to build him without any constellations with a basic 3-star weapon. We'll also be looking at some of the most popular artifact choices for Albedo. How can he increase the team's elemental damage, and how do you build him if you're going for the burst damage. Finally, we're going to the Albedo party setup choices, options with different characters, synergies, and how we can combine him for increase of elemental damage, or just in general increase of the team's damage with his E-spell. Now I'm sure most of us have tried Albedo out in the test run with Xiangling. You can see over here, he is not proccing a lot of damage. Each time his E-spell procs, we're looking at about 2000 damage. And this doesn't seem to be that massive. And also, he seems to have a lot of energy recharge. So the first thing I was wondering is, how do we build him? Do we build him for his burst damage with his ultimate? Do we go with his E-spell? Do we scale with defense? Or do we go with energy recharge? So in this video, we'll go through all of those. Now if we look at Albedo's stats, he is actually one of the highest defense scaling characters in the game, with 876 defense at level 90. He also gains increase of geo damage. So right away you can see that he actually wants to go with something of defense. His base attack is not very high for a 5-star character, and if we try to build him into base attack or attack scaling characters, there's a lot better characters. There's the Luke, there's Genshin, there's a lot of physical attack dealing characters. Even someone like Razor and Albedo can do a lot of damage. So for Albedo, I wouldn't recommend going with the base attack route and try to build him into a burst damage ultimate. I'll recommend using his highest defense in the game and scale with defense. And there's a reason for this. Because Albedo's special E-spell allows him to have like a Geo vessel on the field. Vessel have a bird that hits enemies. Albedo has an AoE flower that hits enemies when they take damage. This scales with defense. And notice that every 2 seconds he'll be dealing about 200% of his defense. You can cast this every 4 seconds, and this is actually the core kit for Albedo. So he is here to provide the E-spell, and also he can provide us with shield and crystallize with geo damage. Now it is very important for us to notice, the only damage that is dealt with E-spell that scales with attack is the initial damage, which is only 200%. After that, all of the damage is actually scaled with defense. And surprisingly enough guys, once I saw this particular trick from DevilTakoyaki, he talked about the Harbinger of Dawn. This particular blue item actually gives the best stats for Albedo. Now you might be wondering, hey, it's just a blue item, why would I use this? It has a really low base attack. But because we're building Albedo for the E-spell, we actually don't need the base attack. We're just here for the critical damage, we're here for the special effect with critical rate. Now if we come to this weapon in more details, we can see at the maximum level, level 90 for the blue weapon, which is actually very achievable and it's actually lower cost compared to the purple weapon and also the golden weapon. You can see the critical damage goes to 46.9%, and we can easily refine this weapon to level 5 with 28% critical rate. Now just as a comparison, I saw this is the weapon I got from my free standard wishes, and this is one of the best bows in the game. We only get 22.1% critical rate and also 20% critical damage at the maximum level. And you can see this is a constellation, or this is a refinement 0 weapon. And over here, we have an easily refined to level 5 weapon. And the critical rate and also the critical damage is much higher. Now because Albedo doesn't care about the base attack, this weapon makes him incredibly powerful to scale with all of his defense and all of his geo damage. Now let's come over to this video by the Japanese content creator who I cannot pronounce his name. I'll have this video link for you guys if you guys want to have a look. So what's happening is you can see him listing out the details for Albedo, and you can see him actually doing tremendous damage with the E-spell. He'll be showing you the weapons he's using. He is using the 3-star weapon that we shot earlier. And also for the enemy which is above 50% HP, he actually doesn't do the highest damage. And even with that, he is critical hitting for about 9000 damage. And after the enemy is below 50% HP, notice he's critical hitting for more damage, because Albedo's passive allows him to do more damage when the enemy is below 50% HP. So he is doing over 10,000 damage to the enemy with each of the Procs, with the critical rate of course. But keep in mind guys, this is when Albedo's on the field. He doesn't have to be on the field. If you have any other characters that's on the field fighting, the flower will still do this much damage. So this is why this build I think is one of the best ones for Albedo, because the position for him is to support. He shouldn't be on the field to do damage. He just casts a Lotus, and after casting a Lotus, he's incredibly strong. And over here we can see our content creator showing the stats. The critical rate is 65% with the sword, and also massive critical damage from the sword. After that, he has quite a bit of the geo damage. You can see his geo damage is about 90%. And finally, if we come back over here a little bit, and over here we can see the base stats of his Albedo. It is a level 90 Albedo with about 2000 defense. So he is massively scaling into defense. And if you look at his artifact stats, he is going for majority of defense. You can also see he didn't even go for level 8 on the E-spell. So, he doesn't have any constellations, he didn't go for any E-spells. And I'll go through the details of his stats of artifact as well, the choices and the sub stats. Now, because that particular YouTube video is actually in Japanese, I was fortunate enough to come across this post by Black Cat over here to talk about this particular build. So over here, our Reddit fan actually translated the build and actually demonstrated what is important. So right away, we can see the Harbinger of Dawn is actually the best weapon in choice. This is because we don't need the base attack. We just want the sub stats from the sword. We want the higher critical damage. And this weapon is easily achievable and can be found during, wishes, and they come a lot. Now, unfortunately for myself, I actually used all of those weapons when I was leveling my Skyward Hub, because they actually cost so much to level. So I wasted all of those weapons. So make sure guys, if you're planning to try Albedo or if you're planning to use him, keep this particular sword, keep 6 copies of this so you can maximum refinement this weapon. Now coming back to the Albedo build. Over here a friend is saying to go with the 4 Petra over the 2 Petra and 2 Defenders. Now if we look into the artifact recommendations, personally I think the Arctic Petra is the best one because we gain the 15% geo damage. And after that, if we crystallize with elements, which happens a lot with Albedo and geo damage, we gain 35% increased elemental damage for the crystallized element. So he will boost the damage for the team even further. Now there is also another artifact choice for Albedo. We can go with the Noblest if you're planning to have a higher base defense Albedo for the increase of burst damage, and of course you can increase the team's damage by about 20% each time you cast ultimate. This I think is a secondary choice. I would definitely recommend going for the Active Petra for the higher E-spell damage and also for the ability to increase the elemental damage. For the Noblest, it's more focused on ultimate and attack percentage. So although it's nice, most other characters can achieve that. We really want to highlight Albedo's specialty with the E-spell, so I think the Active Petra is definitely the best choice, as we can see over here. And as we go through this guide, what we can see is our friend summarized that the Albedo is doing about 9000 damage on a critical hit for enemies above 50% and also about 10,000 damage on the critical hit for enemies below 50%. Notice Albedo doesn't have to be on the field, and this is what makes him so strong. And you can see the weapon choices. The Harbinger of Dawn is the best choice, and after that the Fasten Desire is actually really powerful as well. But notice the 3-star is better than 4-star, and also they're better than 5 stars. Now as we go further in this guide, we can see the main stats recommendation by the Japanese content creator is actually defense percentage, geo percentage, also critical stats. So notice defense is actually prioritized. And for the sub stats, he recommends going for the critical stats for 50-50. So it is a 1-to-2 ratio. If you have 50% critical rate, you should be at least aiming for 100% critical damage. After that, go with defense and also flat defense. If we come back to the video, we can see the choice of artifacts. I'll try to translate a little bit because I can read a bit of Japanese similar to Chinese. You can see there is the critical chance and also energy recharge. There's also damage and also defense. So notice that those are the standard ones. It doesn't change the main stats. Over here we can see the critical chance, critical rate, and also some of the energy recharge. And on the next artifact, we can see he's going for defense percentage and also flat defense and also critical rate. Next up, we're going to have the cup. The cup is going to have the geo damage. After that, we also have the flat defense and also the critical stats over here. And finally, we have the crown choice for Albedo. This is quite important because he didn't go with the critical damage. He went with the defense percentage for 58 defense percentage. This is because he has some really good substats with critical rate and critical chances. So if you mixing those up, it's okay if you're going for the critical damage if you don't have a really good rolls. If you have some really good rolls on defense as substats, you can swap those up. So I think it's flexible. You can go with defense, you can go with the critical damage, and depends on your substats, you can go with those. And it's shown over here as well, so those are the priorities to go with. Now, if you haven't subscribed, this is a really good time to do so. Make sure you also turn the bell on for the latest news as I find more of them for us. You can see that we're really dedicated for Genshin Impact. We'll have builds, guides, tips, news, and events update for everything that's Genshin Impact related. So now that we had a look at the weapon and also artifact choices for Albedo, we also have some generalized tips for us with Albedo. As you can see over here, I'm testing my Albedo, and I'm doing about 2000 damage with just my random artifact sets. And what I want to show you guys is, you want to proc multiple hits to multiple enemies, because each enemies have 2-second reset time. Each time you proc every 2 seconds, enemy will take the Albedo defense damage. So with someone like Venti who procs them multiple times and also helps Albedo to gather them, it's really powerful. And this also goes with his burst ultimate. So with Albedo's burst ultimate, what you want to notice is it is quite random. There will be 7 waves. Each wave will proc on the enemy, and if you group enemies together, they will take multiple waves of damage. And of course, you want to have the E-spell down. So notice, what you can do is, you can have the E-spell down, have Venti or someone gathers the enemy together, then use Albedo's ultimate for the maximum efficiency and the multiple procs of the Deadly Blossom waves. Now before we go into the party recommendation guides for Albedo, let's have a look at Albedo's passive and talents. Notice that his E-spell gains 25% more damage when enemies' HP is below 50%. Again guys, this is reinforcing us to build him for the E-spell damage. And while he casts his ultimate, he'll increase the team's elemental mastery by 125. So we can see that Albedo is focusing on supporting the team and also casting his E-spells and ultimate to support the team. And this is going to be reflected during our party choices. Now there's something I want to show you guys. This particular exploration spell with 10% chance to get double product is actually surprisingly good. Now if you're wondering what I mean by that, let's have a look at this replay. I'm currently crafting weapon accessory materials, and I'm crafting those special ones for my new weapon. And using Albedo on the crafting bench, what's going to happen is there's 10% chance every item that's crafted will be doubled. So we'll have a 40% chance of doubling this. And over here, if you double one of those, it's so rewarding because those are so hard to come by. And this alone actually saved me about 20, 40 or even 60 reasons. And this is actually incredible. Now there are chances you don't get lucky, but this time I got really lucky. Now coming over to the party setup for Albedo, there are 2 particular choices for Albedo. One is using 2 of the Geo characters on the team and focus on another Geo character to do most of the damage. The second choice is focus on the elemental effects and also the elemental increase of elemental mastery with Albedo and someone that's similar to Sakura's to help the other characters to do more elemental combos. So coming to the first type. Over here we'll have Nagon as the main carry. It is usually recommended for Nagon to be at least Constitution 1 to do this, because this allows her normal attacks to deal AoE damage to the enemies. Nagon is one of the best single target damage dealers in the game, but with Albedo on the team, what's going to happen is, if you build him for his E-spell, he can help Nagon to do AoE damage, and this makes him incredibly strong for her. This also gives her the Geo synergy. After that, we can go with 2 of the Pyro supports. Bennett is probably the best choice for the healing and also increased damage for Nagon. You don't have to go with Xiaoling, any of the Pyro characters can work, but Xiaoling with Goba, you can have the Geo Lotus and also Goba down to do additional damage to the enemies every moment. So this is quite a nice of a team, and we only need 1 of the 5 stars, which is Albedo, and this makes Nagon super strong. Now coming over to the second party setup, I'm sure you guys are wondering, can we use Zhongli with Albedo? Yes we can. Both of those Geo characters will be acting as a support and also a damage boost. So Zhongli's E-spell with the pillar down also helps Albedo to proc his E-spell. So every 2 seconds Zhongli's E-spell does damage, and this does damage with Albedo's E-spell. This is a really good combo, and also Zhongli's burst damage does a lot more damage. They also provide infinite amount of shields. I also went with Qingyan and also Diluc for additional shield, but the downside is we do not have enough elemental combinations. This is because if we're using a main character like the Luke, we actually want to conduct some of the vaporize or maybe melt effect to boost his damage. So that's why we can come to the next party setup. On those party setup, we're going for elemental damage. So Sakura's increase our elemental damage, Albedo increase the elemental damage after casting his ultimate, and also Mona increased all the damage taken by enemies by about 50% with her ultimate. So those are really powerful supporting characters. Notice Sakura's is one of the 4 stars that's really powerful. After that, it is up to us to pick which of the main characters to use and how to synergize it. Notice if you're going for someone like Child might be Hydra damage, you want to have someone that is Pyro damage to debuff enemies first for Vaporize. And similarly, if you're going for someone that is Pyro with the Luke, we want to have someone that is Cryo first to debuff enemies for the Melt effect. This will allow us to do 200% damage, and using those characters as a supporting character, we can do even more damage with the Elemental Mastery increase and also the damage increase. So those are the preset characters. You can mix them around. You don't need to have Sakura's and Albedo on the team, but they can help as well. You don't need to have Mona on the team, and as you go through this, you basically swap the characters on one side into this side. Let's say, I'll give you guys a live example. Let's use the example for Klee over here. If I'm going with Klee, I want something that deals cryo damage first. So this can be Kaya, this can be Diana, this can be anyone. Ideally, I will go with Diana because she also provides the healing and also the shield. So we can go with Klee debuffing the enemy first, then Sakura's casting the throw effect to have the Vehemence effect, then Albedo casting the ultimate, Diana debuffing the enemy with cryo, then Klee hitting the enemy with the melt effect for massive damage. So those are 2 very good base ideas for building our battle. We can go with the Elemental Mastery, or we can go with a flat team of Geo damage and also increased damage for multiple procs. Now hopefully you guys have not made the mistake I did to fodder those items. I foddered them before I discovered this and I'm a little regretting. The good thing is I'm kind of building for my gaming because of this bow. I'm saving those bow and farming my cryo for Ganyu. So that means I probably won't use Albedo as a super strong support. But if you plan to use Albedo guys, do not miss this sword. This is incredible. And also shout out and also credits to our Japanese friend over here for showing us this wonderful build with Albedo, and also for Black Cat over here to translate this. This is actually amazing, and I'm really loving it that we don't have to build Albedo for the flat damage. We can use the defense scaling to massive effectiveness. Let me know what you guys think, guys. How do you think about this build? Or do you think the burst damage build is nice? I've seen people deal over 70,000 damage with the burst damage, but I feel like, I've seen like, 500,000 more than damage, so there's no need to fight for damage. It's better to fight for the support characters. Now, if you found this video helpful, make sure you subscribe and also turn the little bell on for the latest news. I'll be looking towards to make more builds, guides, tips, and news and event updates for us as we come further into the game. And as always, I wish you guys the best of luck with Genshin and have the most fun in exploring this wonderful world.